what changes when you stop asking what something means and actually see what is there? This lesson, screen share, is going to be explaining a little more about observing before you interpret, and signal and substrate, and what it is and why we need both, and that you admit both. We're going to talk about signal and substrate. Okay. What we notice, that's the signal. The symbol, aka the signal, the transmission. Okay. What appears and what arrives. The substrate, right? That's you. You're like the sponge that is absorbing everything. Our natural being is to absorb the things around us. That's why I'm teaching how to observe it without absorbing it like a sponge, okay? Because signals are all around us. They're everywhere, right? Like the bird, the tree, the mountain, the sun, right? The rocks, the water, the ripples. Those are all signals. The substrate is what's underneath, okay? And that is like your environment, your body itself, right? Your mindset, your cultural experiences. Signals rise from the substrate. Understanding comes from seeing both. Seeing the signal up top and understanding the roots is the substrate. You are a substrate. You are also emitting signal. Understanding both is to understand symbols and to understand yourself. The substrate is what lies underneath, what influences you interpreting the signal, and what gives it meaning, what shapes the pattern. Let's go to observing before. Sorry about that. All right, observing before you interpret, okay? Before you're jumping to conclusions about seeing a key, about seeing a spiral, finding a feather, right? See before you mean. Before you jump to a conclusion on something, you're leaving the gap for curiosity to form, for other missing information to present itself. Okay, let's go to a different lesson here. Observe first, reflect honestly, and stop trying to make meaning of every signal and symbol. If you like learning about symbolic literacy, the doors are open. Thank you. All right. I'm Rose from Symbolic Literacy. You can also find me all over social networks as Eraswell23 for Symbolic Literacy. Okay, we are deepening Signal Substrate. See what we first talked about, the first lesson about it. It'll pull it up. All right, so we talked about how we are the substrate, but we also emit signal, right? And each person has their own lived experiences that they absorb. This is the substrate. The signal is the outside transmissions that we receive that come into our field of awareness. Yeah, what appears, what arrives, and what catches our attention. The substrate is what absorbs it, the context. It's also the environment, the lived experience that is experiencing the signal. All right, so we're understanding that each of us is a substrate and we are also emitting signal. Okay, now let's talk about when we recognize and come into contact with another person's substrate. That's what we're deepening today. All right, let's go back to the regular classroom here. I'm lagging. I should have checked the Wi-Fi before I press record, but let's keep going. All right, observation practice under the Symbolic Literacy classroom. All right, you scroll down. So first off, the first thing we learn in Symbolic Literacy is also waterproof window, right? Waterproof window is about encountering something outside of yourself without automatically absorbing it into your substrate. So these outside signals up here, like the school bus, the people walking, the do not cross sign, the cup of coffee, the text message, the people with the conversation in the coffee shop, that's outside signals. Each signal that you're seeing has a substrate. Now, when we encounter other people's substrates, that's what we're talking about today. Here we go. So we perceive without absorbing. So you cannot totally understand what I'm talking about here if you have not already previously interacted or become aware of my concept of waterproof window. Okay, you're creating the transparent boundary between what signals of other people's substrate and your own rooted substrate. So you're going to see the storm outside of the window, right? And what comes into your living room here, what comes into your substrate, you get to discern. You get to observe. Well, first you become aware, observe, reflect, and discern if parts of that storm, that signal can come into your living room, into your substrate, into your absorption field. You see the storm, you keep the window waterproof. Contact is not absorption. Just because you encounter and are aware of another person's substrated signal does not mean it has to become part of your lived substrate. We have their substrate, their signal, your because you know they're transmitting a signal from their rooted lived experience of their substrate. So we have their substrate, their signal, and then your receptivity through this window into my substrate. And then you observe, reflect, and discern what you're going to hold into your own roots living system. And you don't have to integrate other people's signals from their substrate. You don't have to hold it. So you then, after you discern and observe and reflect what their signal is and where it's coming from their lived experience, you can choose to integrate it, to hold on to it, and continue observing it before you make a decision, because we'll get into that. You can release it, and expression is optional. You do not have to express something that comes into your field of awareness. Signal substrate. Receiving is not the same as integrating. Okay, you can look at this lady right here. She's in her little home space, her peaceful, quiet space, and she has her window up. That is the transparent boundary from her tree to other people's tree, right? The tree is a perfect symbolic example of a signal substrate, because the top up here where the canopy is sending out signals, right? But the bottom part of the substrate is the lived roots and experience that adapted and absorbed those signals. We don't have to absorb every signal that we come in contact with. Signal, what reaches your awareness, right? Substrate, what is already rooted in you. Receptivity is the window, you being in peace inside your own home, looking out your window at other people's substrated signal. Open enough to receive, but not forced to conclude. Signal, what comes from the outside. Receptivity is the transparent boundary of reception that you're encountering into your awareness before you decide what you want to integrate, hold, release, or express. But first, you have to be aware, observe, reflect, and discern. There we go. Someone else's substrated signal comes into your field of awareness. You have to automatically make certainty or conclusions on it. Okay, we can pause. Do not force the immediate closure. Allow more information to surface. Notice what changes when the nervous system settles. Also, I wanted to bring up, I almost forgot, a signal isn't always someone else telling you something or transmitting something. A signal can also be Mary bumps, chill bumps you get on your skin when something resonates. It can also be that your throat tightening up, right? Or your chest feeling like an elephant sitting on it. Those, they're considered body signals. So a signal isn't always outside of you, but it's the reception of another signal substrate encountering your signal substrate that gives your body that signal. Yes, reflection and patience. Also, I wanted to bring up a real conversation I had this morning with my family, okay, pertaining to a job. It's a side gig that I've been doing for over a year, right? It had a lot going on with it, but the conclusion came to the door dashing that I'm doing is not an appropriate enough job for money that's coming in right now. But to me, in my substrate, it has been working for the past year. Just because I hear the outside opinions and signals of their substrated signal coming into my field of awareness doesn't mean I have to rearrange my own substrate and transmit out my expression of it. So I listened to what they said. I observed, I was aware of it. I observed it. I reflected on it. And then I discerned, do I need to put my expression and my words into it? Because if something's been working for me, just because an outside signal comes in to my field of awareness doesn't mean I have to embed it into me, into who I am, of my substrate. I just wanted to kindly roughly encounter that a little bit. Also, at the end of the conversation, instead of defending myself and what I chose as a side gig, while I'm also working on my book, in my group, in my classroom, in my community, that's neither here nor there. I didn't bring that up in the conversation with the family. Okay. And this is what I mean by I'm embodying exactly what I'm teaching you guys. I'm not just teaching you random information. This is information I have learned, experience in, that is part of my daily life. Okay. And at the end of that conversation about how DoorDash isn't good and you're not making enough money, it wasn't particularly pointing towards me. It was towards my sister. But I was within the conversation and the field of the substrated signal that was approaching my substrate. The old me would have defended myself explained myself, over explained myself, and then walked out of there feeling like it was pushed onto me and made me feel shame, and that I should redirect my whole self onto what their signal imposed and assumed and inferred, whatever the word is you want to bring up. But as I walked away from that conversation, I just said, I hope things work out for the better. And I walked away. I didn't have to integrate, hold on to, or express what was going on from their substrated signal, even though it was like a whole conversation of my family, right? I released it. In that moment, I realized there's no need for me to defend myself, explain myself, or rearrange my own whole life in my rooted substrate because of a signal that they put out. Let me get some water. All right, let's go to the next slide here. Yeah, exactly what I just was talking about. All right. Discern, integrate, and express. So as we're receiving this receptivity from other people's signals, substrated signal, when it encounters and comes into our field of awareness of our substrate, we don't have to, like I said a while ago, integrate it, hold on to it, or express it. The discernment is the key. I guess you would say it's the gateway for you to release that substrated signal or incorporate it into who you are and express it. Expression is optional. You don't have to speak on what you're observing and what is reflecting and what you're encountering and what you're putting into your substrate. Discern what actually belongs to me. Integrate. Let only the useful signal take root. Excuse me. Express. Transmit only what is truly mine if it's appropriate. Right? Like I said this morning, I didn't have to stand up there and explain myself till I turned blue in my face. That is wearing myself out over somebody else's substrated signal of what they thought the side gig that is my main gig, other than my work here, was a concept that they had of something. Okay, all that arrives, release what is not mine, integrate what is mine, and express consciously. There we go. And that is optional. Expression after you encounter a substrated signal is optional. You do not have to explain yourself of why you're not integrating that person's signal into your substrate. All right, now I want to go back to the original picture image that I have here on the substrate in daily life, and let's just look at it again. Signals are visible, the substrate lies beneath. So understand that every person you encounter is a substrate, and they also transmit out signal. What is the substrate? Education system, schedules, funding, family routines, socioeconomic factors, cultural norms, safety concerns, laws, urban design, rush hour pressures, infrastructure engineering, policies, power grids. So it's all the environment and everything that you allow to incorporate into your being, your lived field, your rooted system. The more we learn to see beneath the surface, the more clearly we understand the patterns of our lives. All right, well, I hope this helps everyone to understand a little bit better. Receiving is not agreeing. Understanding is not integrating. Discernment does not require expression. I hope everyone has a great day, and this is a great deepening lesson for signal and substrate in daily life. Thank you for your